Welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast topic, English conversations for restaurants and cafes.
Hello.
You know, whether you're just popping out for a quick coffee or settling in for a longer meal, dining out is this incredibly common everyday experience.
It really is. So familiar.
And it's also a place where a huge amount of English conversation happens, right?
Absolutely. A key setting for practice.
So this deep dive is all about helping you navigate those situations, drawing from a really helpful guide we have here that focuses on the essential language tools.
That's right. Our mission today is to equip you with the insights and the cultural awareness you need.
So you can walk into any dining scenario, whether it's a bustling cafe or maybe a quieter restaurant.
And feel completely confident and comfortable.
Yeah.
We want to turn any potential, fumbles into genuinely enjoyable interactions.
It really is valuable to have these phrases and concepts ready in your mental toolkit, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
Whether you're traveling, practicing your language skills, or just, trying something new locally. And this isn't just about knowing how to order a dish. It's about smoothly navigating the entire experience.
From start to finish.
Right, from the moment you consider going out to paying the bill and leaving. Let's unpack this guide and see how it helps us master dining out in English.
Okay.
Focusing on the practical steps and the cultural nuances that really make a difference.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating here is exploring how language isn't just about requesting items, but how it shapes the entire experience.
How so?
Well, from expressing politeness and making specific needs known to simply understanding the flow of service,
Right.
We'll explore those different layers, the foundational steps like making a reservation or ordering, obviously.
The basics.
But also delve into the subtle cultural cues,
Mm-hmm.
how to handle unexpected situations, and importantly, the distinct variations you'll encounter.
Depending on the type of place or even the country you're in.
Exactly. Big differences sometimes.
All right, so the guide starts right at the beginning, which is often planning ahead, especially if you're thinking about a sit-down restaurant.
Absolutely. The journey frequently begins before you even step foot in the place, particularly for popular restaurants or during peak hours.
Makes sense.
We're talking about the first interaction, making reservations.
And while many listeners might know the very basics, it's worth touching on why making a reservation is often the smart move.
Well, simply put, it guarantees you a spot.
Yeah, that's key at busy times or for larger groups.
Right. It saves you from potentially frustrating long waits or even the disappointment of not getting in at all.
Okay, so how do you actually do it? What does the guide suggest?
It gives us some standard phrases, and the nuance is often in being clear and efficient. When calling, you'd probably start directly. Something like, hello, I'd like to make a reservation for 2 people.
Simple and to the point?
Exactly. Or you might ask, can I book a table for Friday at 8 p.m.?
Okay.
Or, using slightly more formal language perhaps, is it possible to reserve a spot for Saturday the 15th at 7:30?
Got it. Any other ways?
Sure. A common alternative is, I'm looking to reserve a table for a party of 4. The main goal is just to convey the party size, date, and desired time clearly right at the start.
And sometimes right at that booking stage, you might have specific needs or preferences,
Yeah.
right? It's not just about getting any table.
Yes, exactly. And the guide addresses specifying those preferences during the booking call or online form.
Like what kind of things?
For instance, if you're hoping for a nice view, you could ask, could we possibly have a table by the window?
Okay.
If you prefer a quieter atmosphere, we'd prefer a quiet corner if possible.
Makes sense.
For outdoor enthusiasts, is there outdoor seating available? That's a big one now.
Definitely.
And a practical one, if you have young children, can you accommodate a high chair for a baby? Using these phrases early manages expectations for both you and the restaurant.
That seems really important. And after making the request, confirming the details seems crucial to prevent misunderstandings.
It's absolutely vital. You really want to avoid any mix-ups later on.
So what are some confirmation phrases?
Simple but effective ones. You might say, could you just confirm the reservation is under the name Smith? Just to double check they spelled it correctly or got the name right.
Good idea.
Or, could you repeat the time and date for me, please?
Yeah.
Just to hear it back and ensure it matches what you intended.
Okay.
If you're unsure about the restaurant's style, maybe for a special occasion you could ask, is there a dress code?
Oh, that's a good one. Hadn't thought of that.
And it's always wise to know, how long is the reservation held for, in case you hit unexpected traffic or something.
Right. Good point. But, plans can change unexpectedly. Does the guide cover changing or canceling?
Yes. Knowing how to adjust is important too.
So how do you cancel politely?
A direct phrase works best. I need to cancel a reservation for Smith on Friday. Clear and simple.
Okay. And if you just need to change the time?
You could say, can I change my reservation from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m.?
And if your group size changes? More people, fewer people?
You'd ask, is it possible to add one more person to my booking? Or, actually, I need to reduce the number of people for my reservation to 3.
And if the date just doesn't work anymore?
Then something like, I'd like to see if I can move my reservation to next Saturday instead.
Okay, that's helpful. The guide also provides an example dialogue for making a reservation, right? To see it in action.
It does, yeah. It shows the customer starting off.
Hello, I'd like to make a reservation for a party of 4 on Friday evening at 7 p.m.
Straightforward.
Then the host checks availability, confirms they have a table, and asks for a name.
And the customer
Responds with, it's under Sarah Johnson. And then adds that preference we talked about, could we possibly have a table near the window?
putting it all together.
Exactly. The host notes the preference, manages expectations by saying they'll do their best, but can't guarantee it, which is common,
Right.
and asks about other needs like a high chair. Then the customer confirms, asking, can you just confirm the reservation details for me?
And the host repeats it all back. Yep. Party size, day, time, name, notes the preference, and mentions the table hold time, like maybe 15 minutes. It clearly demonstrates that essential back and forth confirmation.
It really underscores the point that clarity benefits everyone, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And the tips provided in the guide reinforce this.
What are the key tips?
Things like try calling during less busy hours, mid-afternoon maybe, when staff might have more time.
Makes sense.
Be clear and concise with your details, name, number, time. Always confirm everything before hanging up.
And you mentioned cancellation policies earlier.
Right, pay attention to those. They're important.
That point about cancellation policies is interesting. For someone who hasn't encountered them much, why do restaurants have them? Why is it important to know?
That's a great question and worth exploring a bit. Restaurants, especially the popular or more high-end ones, often operate on pretty thin margins.
Okay.
Their capacity, the number of tables they have, is basically their main asset, particularly during those peak dinner or lunch hours.
So every table counts.
Exactly. When someone makes a reservation and then just doesn't show up, a no-show, or they cancel really late, maybe minutes before, the restaurant often doesn't have enough time to rebook that table, so it just sits empty during a time they expected it to be generating income.
I see. Lost revenue.
Precisely. They've already planned their staffing levels, maybe prepped certain ingredients, and allocated that space based on the booking.
Right.
So cancellation policies, which might involve charging a fee if you don't cancel by a certain deadline, are really a business necessity. They're designed to mitigate that financial loss.
So it encourages people to commit or give proper notice.
Yes. It encourages diners to be considerate. If you can't make it, letting them know in advance allows them to offer the table to someone else.
So it's not just about the restaurant trying to grab extra money. It's about managing their limited resources effectively.
That's a good way to put it. It's about supporting the restaurant's ability to operate sustainably. Being aware of their policy, you can usually find it on their website, or they might mention it when you book, isn't just about avoiding a potential charge for yourself.
It's about being a considerate diner.
Yeah, understanding the operational realities of the business you're choosing to support.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So the reservation is set, or maybe you're being spontaneous and just walking in. The next step is actually arriving at the restaurant or cafe.
Right. That initial interaction when you walk in the door, it sets the tone.
How does that usually go?
You'll usually be greeted near the entrance by a host, or maybe a server or manager in a smaller place.
And how do you announce your arrival smoothly? What do you say?
Well, if you have a reservation, you state that up front, giving your name and perhaps the time.
Okay.
Phrases like, hi, I have a reservation under the name Johnson, or we're here for our 7:30 booking for Miller. Simple.
Got it. And if you don't have a reservation, just hoping for a table.
Then you need to inquire about availability. Something like, hi, I don't have a reservation, but is there a table available for 2 people?
Okay.
Or you could ask directly about potential delays. Is there much of a wait for a table for 3?
And what if you had a seating preference, like wanting to sit outside, or maybe you didn't mention it when booking? Can you ask again upon arrival?
You definitely can. You might say, could we possibly sit outside, please?
Yeah.
If the weather's nice.
Right.
Or maybe, is there a booth available, if you prefer those? We'd like a table in a quiet area if possible, is another common request.
Or away from the noisy kitchen door.
Yeah, can we be seated away from the kitchen door?
Yeah.
Perfectly fine to ask, though they can't always accommodate it, of course.
True. No, what if there's a wait time? That happens a lot at popular spots, right?
Very common. The guide offers essential phrases for managing wait times.
Such as?
The most common is simply asking, how long is the wait for a table for two? If you decide you're okay with waiting, you might ask about being notified, can you let us know when our table is ready? Or maybe, could you text me when it's ready? Some places do that now.
Oh, handy.
If they have a bar or a specific waiting area, is there a bar area where we could wait? It's a good question.
Right.
And in really busy places with a formal list, you'll need to ask, can we put our name on the wait list?
Okay. There's an example dialogue for arriving without a reservation too, isn't there?
Yes, it captures this kind of interaction well.
How does it go?
The customer starts with a direct question. Hi, do you have any tables available for a party of 3?
Okay.
The host checks, acknowledges it's busy. Maybe says something like, we're quite busy right now, provides an estimated wait time, like it's about a 15-minute wait.
Standard stuff.
And then asks if the customer wants to join the wait list. The customer agrees, sure, that works for us. And then asks about waiting options. Can we wait at the bar? The host confirms that's possible, takes their name, and directs them to the bar area. It's a concise, efficient, polite exchange.
The tips for arriving seem like good common sense, but are definitely worth highlighting.
They are. Things like, try to be on time for your reservation.
Crucial.
Or if you know you're going to be late, call ahead and let them know. Maintain politeness, always.
Yeah.
And importantly, observe the establishment's vibe or procedure for seating.
What do you mean by vibe?
Well, in a very casual cafe, there might literally be a sign saying, please seat yourself.
Right, you just find an empty table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Usually after ordering at the counter. But in a more formal restaurant, or even many casual sit-down places, waiting to be greeted and seated by a host is the standard procedure.
And just walking past them to grab a table would be.
Considered quite impolite, yes. You wait for them to show you to your table.
That point about politeness seems especially relevant here. Why is maintaining a polite attitude so impactful in this initial interaction, especially when the place is clearly busy and maybe the staff seems stressed?
It genuinely influences the service you receive, and honestly, it just starts the whole interaction off on a much better fit.
How so?
Think about it. When a restaurant is slammed, the staff is often under immense pressure. They're juggling multiple tables, dealing with new customers arriving, coordinating with the kitchen.
Yeah, it looks stressful.
So a customer who arrives with a polite demeanor, even if they're asking about a potentially long wait, it's just much easier and more pleasant for them to interact with than someone who comes in impatient or demanding right from the start.
So it's not just about following social rules, but actually fostering a better relationship with the staff from the get-go.
Absolutely. It shows respect for them and the demanding job they're doing. Now, politeness won't magically make a table appear if there truly are none available.
Haha, true.
But it creates a positive foundation. A server or host who feels respected is, generally speaking, more likely to be attentive, helpful, and maybe go that little extra mile for you throughout your meal.
Whereas starting off negatively
Can unfortunately cast a shadow over the entire dining experience for both you and the staff. It's a small investment in positive social interaction that usually pays dividends in the quality of your experience.
That makes sense. Okay, so you're seated, maybe you've got water, you're looking at the menu, the main event is next, ordering food and drinks.
Right, the core of the experience in many ways. And this is where clarity and confidence really come into play. You need to articulate your choices clearly.
So how do you let the server know you're ready? You don't want to flag them down too aggressively.
No, definitely not. Polite ways include catching their eye and saying, excuse me, we're ready to order, please.
Okay.
Or, slightly more direct, could you take our order now? Sometimes, if you just want drinks first while you decide on food, you can say, could we get some drinks first, please?
Good distinction.
Or, if you know you want appetizers right away, we'd like to start with a calamari, please.
Got it. And then for the actual food order.
Common phrases involve stating the dish name clearly and mentioning any immediate modifications you know you need.
Like,
Can I get the chicken salad but with the dressing on the side? Or simply, I'd like the steak, please.
what if you're in a rush?
You can add that politely. I'd like the pasta special, please, and could you possibly make it quick? We have theater tickets.
Okay. Can you ask for recommendations based on diet?
Sure. Could you recommend something vegetarian? Or What gluten-free options do you have for main courses?
And for drinks, it seems simpler, but still, options matter.
Ordering drinks is generally pretty direct, yeah. I'll take a sparkling water, please. Or could I have a glass of the house, white wine?
What about coffee or tea?
You might need to specify details. I'll have a cappuccino, please. Or can I get an English breakfast tea with milk?
And asking about other options, like non-alcoholic.
Definitely useful.
Yeah.
Do you have any interesting non-alcoholic options? Or for wine enthusiasts, could I see the wine list, please?
Now, before you actually decide on a dish, you might need more information, right? Ask questions about the menu items.
Yes, essential questions help you make informed choices and avoid disappointment.
What are some common ones?
What's today's special is a standard one.
Right.
Asking about preparation or flavor. Is the curry very spicy? Or how is the fish prepared?
Ingredient questions, especially if you have mild sensitivities, maybe not full allergies yet.
Right. Does this dish contain nuts? Or is there dairy in the soup?
And finding out what's popular.
You could ask, what's the most popular item on the menu? Or perhaps more personally, what's your favorite dish? Or what would you recommend?
The guide has a restaurant ordering example dialogue too, right? That ties some of these points together.
It does and shows the natural flow. The server asks if they're ready to order.
Yeah.
The customer responds, yes, we are. I'll start with a glass of red wine, please. And for the main course, I'd like the grilled salmon.
Clear.
The server confirms the order and then asks about specifics because salmon might come with options. Certainly. Would you like the salmon with the lemon herb sauce or perhaps just grilled plain?
Clarifying the preparation.
Exactly. The customer specifies, with the sauce, please.
Right.
And then asks about what comes with it. Also, does that come with a side dish?
Good question.
The server lists the options. Maybe it comes with your choice of roasted potatoes or seasonal vegetables. The customer chooses, I'll have the vegetables, please.
Okay.
And then the customer adds that time constraint we mentioned earlier. Great. And could you possibly make it quick? We're actually a bit short on time tonight.
Putting it all together.
Right. The server confirms they'll let the kitchen know and asks if anything else is needed right now. It's a good illustration. Ordering a drink, a main, specifying preparation, asking about sides, choosing one, and adding a practical request like speed.
The tips from the source for ordering seem pretty spot on too.
Yeah, things like read the menu carefully first. Don't be afraid to ask questions. It's always better to ask than to get something you don't like or can't eat.
So true.
Inform the server early on if you're in a rush. And always use polite language of the please and thank you. Really do make a big difference to the interaction.
That point about asking questions about ingredients feels particularly important, especially thinking ahead to potential allergies, which we'll cover more later.
It is absolutely vital, even if it's not a severe allergy. Just asking, does this dish contain mushrooms? As you're considering ordering is a really good habit.
Better safe than sorry.
Exactly. The guide encourages asking questions. And that's not just about understanding the taste of the dish. It's fundamentally about ensuring it meets your dietary needs and, crucially, is safe for you to eat.
There's a subtle difference, though, isn't there, between asking about an item versus asking to modify it?
Yes, that's a significant distinction. Asking what kind of vegetables come with the chicken is seeking information to help you decide if you want the chicken.
Okay.
Asking, can I get the chicken but substitute the potatoes for extra vegetables? Is requesting a modification to the standard dish after you've decided you want it, but with a change.
Yeah.
The first type of question is usually easier for the server to answer quickly from memory or the menu description. The second type, requesting a modification, involves the kitchen.
And might not always be possible.
Right. It might have limitations depending on how the dish is prepped, or it might take extra time, or sometimes even cost a little extra. Both types of questions are perfectly normal, but it's good to be aware that requesting changes requires clear communication and sometimes a bit of flexibility.
Good point. Okay, so you've successfully ordered, the drinks have arrived, and hopefully delicious food is on its way. But the interaction with the staff doesn't just stop there, does it?
Not at all. Communication often continues throughout the meal to ensure everything is going smoothly and you have everything you need for a comfortable experience.
Right, like needing more water or dropping a fork. How do you politely get a server's attention mid-meal without being disruptive? Definitely no shouting or snapping fingers.
Oh, please, no.
Ah.
That's universally considered rude. The guide offers polite and effective ways.
Such as?
The standard, and usually best approach, is to try and make eye contact. When they look your way, a slight smile or nod, maybe a small hand raise, is often enough.
Okay.
If you need to use words, a simple, said at a normal volume when they're nearby is perfectly fine.
What if they seem really busy?
You can show consideration. Excuse me, could you come over when you have a moment? That acknowledges they're busy, but signals you need something.
Nice.
If you have a specific need, you can sometimes combine it gently. Excuse me, but could we possibly get some more water when you have a chance?
And if you're waiting for something you ordered?
A polite check-in. Excuse me, sorry to bother you, but could you just check on our appetizer order when you get a moment?
Okay, polite options. Once you have their attention, what are common things you might need mid-meal?
You might need extra items at the table. Running out of napkins is common.
Happens all the time.
So phrases like, could we get some extra napkins, please? Or if someone drops their fork, could you possibly bring another set of cutlery?
What about consumables? More bread?
Yep. Is it possible to get a bit more bread for the table? Or, the very common and important, could you refill our water glass pitcher, please?
And expressing gratitude is always appreciated, right? Not just at the end.
Oh, absolutely. It's crucial for maintaining a positive atmosphere throughout the meal.
So simple things.
Simple phrases like thank you when they bring your water or clear a plate are standard politeness.
But you can be more specific?
Sure. Thank you for the great service so far, if they've been particularly attentive. Or, we really appreciate your help with getting that extra chair.
What about complimenting the food during the meal?
Definitely. The food is excellent, thank you. Or, this soup is delicious. It's nice feedback for them and the kitchen. Generally, just acknowledging their effort with thanks makes the interaction more pleasant for everyone.
There's a provided dialogue illustrating a basic request for assistance mid-meal, isn't there?
Yes, it shows the natural flow. Customer, server approaches. Yes, customer. Could we possibly get some extra napkins? Server, of course I'll bring them right over. Anything else I can get for you at the moment?
Good follow-up.
Customer. Yes, actually, could you also refill our water pitcher when you have a second? Server. Certainly, I'll take care of that right away. Customer. Thank you so much.
It's a quick, polite, clear exchange showing how to ask for a couple of things efficiently.
Exactly.
The tips here in the guide emphasize being respectful, patient, using nonverbal cues effectively, and acknowledging good service.
Right. Those nonverbal cues are really useful. That subtle raised hand, or just catching their eye with a nod, is often enough to signal you need something without interrupting other diners or shouting across a room.
And the appropriate nonverbal signals can vary culturally, you mentioned.
They can, subtly. But generally, anything loud or overly attention-grabbing like yelling, whistling, or snapping fingers is considered rude pretty much everywhere in a dining context.
Good to know. And you mentioned the impact of a simple thank you again.
Yeah, for service staff who are often working really hard, sometimes in physically demanding roles, a genuine expression of thanks for a water refill, for bringing something promptly, for answering a question patiently, it can really make a difference in their day.
Shows you see their effort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It shows you recognize their effort and aren't just taking the service for granted. It reinforces that positive connection we talked about earlier.
Okay. Beyond those standard mid-meal requests, sometimes you need to personalize your order more significantly, especially for dietary needs or strong preferences.
Right. Handling special requests is increasingly common and incredibly important because people have such diverse needs these days, whether it's for serious health reasons like allergies or ethical choices, or simply strong personal preferences.
Dietary restrictions, especially allergies, seem like the most critical category here. Needs to be communicated very, very clearly.
Absolutely. Non-negotiable clarity is needed here.
Yeah.
Stating allergies upfront and explicitly is vital for health and safety.
What phrases should you use? They need to be unambiguous.
Exactly. Something direct like, excuse me, I need to let you know I have a severe allergy to peanuts. Can you please ensure my dish is prepared completely free of peanuts and in an area without cross-contamination?
That's very specific. Good.
You also need to inquire about existing options that might already suit your needs. Do you have a separate gluten-free menu?
Wow.
Or is there anything on the menu that is definitely vegan?
What if a dish is almost right, but needs one change?
Then you ask about modification. The chicken salad sounds good, but can you make it without any dairy in the dressing? Or is it possible to prepare the fish without butter?
Okay. What about customizing orders just for preference, rather than a strict dietary necessity?
You can customize orders in various ways, sure. We already saw adding a time constraint. Make it quick.
Right.
You might want to omit ingredients you just don't like, Could you possibly leave the onions off the burger, please?
Okay.
Or maybe control the amount of sauce or dressing? Can I get the dressing for the salad on the side? That's a very common one.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. What about swapping items?
Sometimes possible. Is it possible to substitute the fries that come with the sandwich for a side salad instead? Worth asking.
And other preferences, like how spicy you want something or how your meat is cooked?
Yes, definitely. Adjusting spice level. Could you make the curry mild, please? Or specifying cooking temperature for meat. I'd like the steak cook medium rare. That's essential information for the kitchen.
What about sharing a dish?
If you're dining with someone and want to share a large main course, for example, you might ask, could you possibly split this dish onto 2 plates for us in the kitchen? Some places will do that.
Okay. The special request dialogue in the guide, the one about the peanut allergy, seems like a really clear example of how to handle a critical dietary need.
It absolutely underscores the importance of being direct and clear. The customer says, "Hi, before I order, I need to mention I have a severe peanut allergy. Can you ensure my dish is completely peanut-free?"
Direct and unambiguous.
And the server's response is key here. They should take it seriously. "Absolutely, thank you for letting me know. I understand completely. I will inform the kitchen immediately and make sure they take extra precautions to prevent any cross-contamination." Which dish were you thinking of ordering?
That's a good response. Shows they get it.
Right. It shows the server is taking ownership, understanding the severity, and clarifying the next step for the kitchen. The customer then specifies the dish, and the server confirms they'll note the allergy specifically for that order and might ask about any other modifications needed for that dish.
The tips for special requests seem crucial here.
They really are.
Yeah.
Mention restrictions or allergies early in the ordering process, ideally right at the beginning.
Don't wait until the food arrives.
No. Be specific about exactly what you need to avoid, e.g. all nuts, not just peanuts if that's the case, or what modification you're requesting.
And be aware.
Be aware that some substitutions or significant modifications might incur an extra charge. It's fair to ask, is there an extra charge for substituting the salad?
Okay. Emphasizing the critical importance of clearly stating allergies for health and safety really can't be stressed enough, can it?
No, it bears repeating. This isn't about being fussy. It's about preventing potentially dangerous, even life-threatening allergic reactions.
And for the kitchen.
For the kitchen staff, handling multiple modifications or allergies across different orders simultaneously can be incredibly complex and requires meticulous attention to detail. So, clear, concise, and early communication from you, the customer, is the absolute best way to help them get it right and ensure your meal is both enjoyable and safe.
Okay. Now, unfortunately, despite everyone's best efforts, sometimes things aren't quite right. Maybe the food arrives cold or it's just the wrong order entirely.
It does happen occasionally, yes.
Yeah.
And knowing how to address those issues or make a complaint politely and effectively is essential for getting them resolved smoothly without ruining the whole experience.
How do you bring up an issue politely? You don't want to sound aggressive or accusatory right away.
Exactly. Start gently, maybe with a polite opening phrase. "Excuse me," to get their attention calmly. Then state the issue clearly but factually.
Like,
"Excuse me, I think there might be a mistake with my order." Or more directly, "I'm sorry, but this isn't the dish I ordered. I believe I asked for the vegetarian option."
what about temperature issues? That's a common one.
A simple, "Excuse me, I'm sorry, but my soup is a bit cold." Or, "This steak seems a little undercooked for what I asked for."
And if something's wrong with the drink?
"I'm sorry, but there seems to be something not quite right with this wine." Or, "I think this soda might be flat."
Okay. And what kind of solution can you reasonably request?
It depends on the issue. You can request a correction. "Could you please replace this with the correct dish?" Or a fix. "Would it be possible to heat this soup up for me?"
What if the item is fundamentally wrong or just really unsatisfactory?
You might ask, could this dish perhaps be remade? Or in some cases, is it possible to take this off the bill?
And if the server isn't able to resolve it or the issue is quite serious?
Then you might need to escalate politely. "Could I possibly speak to the manager when they have a moment, please?"
The guide also includes phrases specifically designed to soften the tone when you're making a complaint, right? To keep things from getting confrontational.
Yes, this is very helpful for maintaining a positive interaction, even when you have to point out a problem.
What are some examples?
Phrases like, "I don't mean to complain, but no case," before stating the issue. Or, "I'm really sorry to bother you, but there seems to be a small issue with," framing it gently.
Or,
I hate to have to mention this, but the fish seems a little dry. Giving them the benefit of the doubt can also help. I'm sure it was just a mix-up in the kitchen, but this has meat in it, and I ordered the vegetarian pasta.
That sounds much less confrontational. The dialogue illustrating an incorrect order, the vegetarian pasta versus the meat one, shows the power of this polite approach, doesn't it?
It really does. The customer uses a polite opening. Excuse me. Server comes over. Customer. I'm so sorry, but I ordered the vegetarian pasta, and I think this one might have meat in it.
Calm and factual.
Exactly. And the server's immediate response is crucial. It should be apologetic and helpful. Oh my goodness, I am so terribly sorry about that. My sincere apologies. They should take responsibility.
Right.
And offer a solution immediately. Let me take this back to the kitchen right away and get the correct vegetarian dish for you immediately. They might also ask if the customer needs anything while they wait. Maybe offer a drink.
And the customer just confirms.
The customer confirms that's what they'd like, and the server apologizes again, reassuring them the correct dish will be out as quickly as possible. The politeness on both sides makes resolving the error much smoother.
The tips for handling complaints seem like excellent reminders.
Yes, remain calm and polite. That is absolutely paramount. Losing your temper rarely helps.
What else?
Be specific about the problem. Just saying, I don't like this, isn't helpful. Saying, this soup tastes much too salty for me, gives them concrete information.
Makes sense.
And know when it's appropriate to ask for a manager. Usually, you try to resolve it with the server first, unless it's a very significant issue or the server seems unable or unwilling to help.
That point about staying calm and polite seems key. Why is it so much more effective than being aggressive?
Because it keeps the focus on solving the problem. When you stay calm and polite, you invite a constructive conversation aimed at finding a solution. The staff are more likely to want to help you fix things.
Whereas if you get angry,
If you become aggressive or demanding, it almost always puts the staff on the defensive. It can escalate the situation, make them less willing to go the extra mile, and honestly, it just makes the experience unpleasant for everyone involved. Being specific helps them fix the actual problem efficiently, rather than guessing what's wrong.
Okay, good advice. All right, let's assume the meal finished. Maybe there was a small issue that got resolved politely, or maybe everything went perfectly. Now it's time to wrap up and pay the bill.
Right, the final stage of the dining experience. This requires a few specific phrases for settling the payment smoothly.
First off, how do you signal you're ready for the bill? And I know you mentioned there's a key regional difference in the word itself.
Yes, that's a classic one. It trips people up sometimes.
Okay.
In the United States and Canada, the common term is check.
Okay.
While in the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and many other parts of the world, the standard term is bill.
Good to remember. So how do you ask?
Depending on where you are, you'd ask, excuse me, could we get the check, please? US, Canada. Or could we have the bill, please? UK, Australia, etc.
Any other ways?
You could say, could you bring the bill check when you have a moment? Or slightly more direct, we're ready for the check bill now, thank you.
What if you're dining with a group and need to pay separately?
You need to specify that when you ask for the bill check. Could we possibly get separate checks bills, please? Or, if you just want the total divided, could you split the bill check 3 ways?
Okay. Payment methods are also good to clarify, right? Especially with different places accepting different things now.
Definitely. Don't assume your preferred method is accepted everywhere.
How do you ask?
You can ask up front when they bring the bill, do you accept credit cards? Or even more specifically, can I pay with Visa? Or do you take American Express?
What about contactless or phone payments?
Can I pay with Apple Pay? Or is contactless payment available?
In cash.
Is it okay if I pay in cash? Good to check if you need change for a large bill too.
What if you're staying at a hotel and the restaurant is connected?
You might be able to charge it to your room. Ask, is it possible to charge this to my room? My room number is number.
Okay. And then the often discussed, sometimes confusing topic of tipping.
Ah, yes, tipping. As we touched on, the norms vary hugely depending on the country and sometimes even the type of establishment within a country.
So what phrases relate specifically to the act of tipping, maybe when paying by card?
If paying by card, the machine might prompt you, or you might need to tell the server. You could ask, can I add the tip onto the card?
How do you specify the amount?
You might say, could you add a 15% tip, please? Or a specific amount, can you add a $10 tip to that?
If paying cash,
You might just leave cash on the table. Or if handing it directly, you could say, this includes a tip, thank you. Or just, thank you, keep the change, if the amount covers a reasonable tip.
Crucially, how do you find out if a tip is expected or already included?
That's key, especially in places like the UK or parts of Europe. Ask directly, is the service charge included in the bill? Or is the tip already included?
Good to clarify. The dialogue for paying the bill covers these points, right?
Yes. The customer asks for the check, using check, so implying a US-Canada setting. Server brings it and asks if they want it split.
Okay.
Customer says no, one check is fine, and then asks about payment. Do you accept credit cards? Server confirms they do and might mention bringing the portable card reader to the table.
Common now.
Then the customer proactively deals with the tip. Great, could you add a 20% tip to the total, please? The server confirms, sure, I can do that for you, and processes the payment.
Straightforward transaction. The tips for paying and tipping seem absolutely essential, especially that point about understanding the local tipping culture.
This is probably one of the most important areas where cultural insight is crucial for visitors, as the guide rightly points out. Tipping norms are definitely not universal.
The guide mentioned the US standard of 15–20% for good service.
Yes, and that's a very common expectation there. But in many other places, like the UK, Australia, or much of continental Europe, tipping is often genuinely optional, or a much smaller percentage, maybe 5–10% or just rounding up, or a service charge is automatically included in the bill.
Let's dig just a little bit more into the why behind these big differences. Why is tipping such a significant part of the service industry income in places like the US compared to countries where it might be optional or already included?
It largely boils down to the fundamental wage structure for service staff in those countries.
How so?
In the United States, for many types of service employees, especially servers in restaurants, there's a legal provision for a lower minimum wage, often called a tipped minimum wage. This is significantly lower than the regular minimum wage.
Because the tips make up the difference.
Exactly. The system is built on the expectation that the majority of a server's earnings will come directly from customer tips. So in that context, tipping isn't just an optional thank you for good service. It's understood to be the main component of their actual livelihood. Employers are legally supposed to make up the difference if tips don't bring the wage up to the regular minimum, but the reliance on tips is structural.
Whereas in other countries,
in many other countries like the UK, Australia, or across Europe, servers are typically paid at least the standard national minimum wage, which is often higher than the US regular minimum wage. A service charge might be included on the bill by the restaurant, and laws vary on how much of that must go to staff. Or tipping is genuinely discretionary, a bonus for truly exceptional service that goes above and beyond the standard expectation, rather than being the core wage.
So understanding that fundamental difference in how staff are paid helps explain the different cultural expectations around tipping.
Precisely. It helps you understand why the expectation is so strong in the US, it's directly tied to wages, and why it might feel less obligatory elsewhere. It shows respect for the local system and the people working within it.
And the practical tip.
Always check the bill carefully to see if a service charge, gratuity, or servizio incluso, in Italy, for example, has already been added. This avoids accidentally double tipping. If you're unsure, just ask politely, is service included?
Okay, super helpful clarification. Now let's shift gears completely to a different, often more relaxed atmosphere, the cafe.
Right. Cafes typically offer a different kind of interaction compared to full-service restaurants. It's usually more casual, very often involves ordering at a counter, and might have different expectations regarding seating and clearing up.
What are the key phrases for ordering at the counter in a typical busy cafe? Speed seems important here too.
Yes, you often need to be concise, especially if there's a queue behind you.
So, what do you say?
Can I get a large latte, please? The standard. You often need to specify the size, small, medium, large, or sometimes chain-specific names like tall, grande, venti.
And milk. That's a big one now.
Definitely. Can I get a flat white with oat milk? Or a cappuccino with regular milk, please? Mentioning if you're staying or leaving is usually required. Can I get an Americano to go? Or the barista might ask, is this for here or to take away?
Can you still ask them to hurry?
You can, politely. Could you possibly make that quick? I have a train to catch. Still applicable. And you might inquire about food items displayed at the counter. What kind of muffins do you have today? Or is that croissant almond?
Okay, and asking about specific items or options on the cafe menu boards.
Sure. You might ask about different drink varieties. What kinds of herbal tea do you offer? Or clarify details. Is your regular coffee decaf? Or do you have any sugar-free syrups for the lattes?
What about food ingredients?
Similar to restaurants, but maybe quicker questions. What's in the chicken pesto sandwich? Or, are the brownies gluten-free?
Got it. Once you've ordered and paid, if you're staying in, you need a place to sit. How does that usually work?
Finding a seat is generally much less formal than in a restaurant. Often you just find an empty table yourself.
So what phrases might you use?
You could ask the staff, is it okay to sit anywhere? Or if you're eyeing a specific spot that looks possibly occupied, you might ask someone nearby, excuse me, is this seat taken? Or is anyone using this chair?
And a very common question in cafes these days.
Wi-Fi. Yes. Do you have Wi-Fi for customers? Or could I get the Wi-Fi password, please?
The cafe ordering dialogue provided in the guide seems like a good illustration of the quick nature of these counter interactions.
It is. It's very efficient. Customer. Hi, can I please get a large iced latte with almond milk?
Straight to the point.
Barista confirms the basic order and then asks about common customizations. Sure thing. Would you like any vanilla syrup or sugar added to that?
Standard upsell clarification.
Customer declines syrup. No, just plain is perfect, thanks. And then adds the rush request. And actually, could you possibly make it quick? I'm in a bit of a hurry this morning.
Okay.
Barista confirms the speed request, gives a brief time estimate. Okay, no problem. Should only be a couple of minutes. And then maybe suggests an add-on, another common tactic. Would you like a pastry or cookie to go with that?
Right.
Customer might inquire about options. Do you happen to have anything gluten-free? Barista offers a specific item, maybe a brownie. Customer decides, no, just a latte today, thanks. It's a rapid back and forth, showing how quickly information needs to be exchanged.
The tips for cafes in the guide seem to highlight being prepared to order efficiently at that potentially fast-paced counter.
That's probably the main differentiator from many full-service restaurants, the emphasis on speed and efficiency, especially when ordering at the counter during busy periods.
So know what you want beforehand.
Having your order basically decided before you get to the front of the queue really helps keep things moving for everyone. And yes, also being aware of potential self-service expectations.
Like what?
Like, you might be expected to clear your own table when you leave bus your own dishes, putting cups and plates in a designated area. Or you might need to listen for your name to be called to pick up your order from the counter rather than having it brought to your table. These are common practices that differ from the full table service model.
Good points. The guide then takes a deeper dive, moving beyond the basic flow to expand into more specific scenarios and, crucially, those cultural nuances we keep touching on. This feels like where the experience for a language learner can really differ significantly.
Absolutely, because language for dining doesn't exist in a vacuum, does it? Regional differences even within English-speaking countries, the specific type of cuisine you're eating, modern dietary trends, they all require adapting your language and, importantly, understanding the local customs and expectations.
Regional differences are fascinating. English is spoken globally, of course, but dining customs are definitely not universal at all.
They truly vary greatly. The guide gives some really useful examples comparing the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and Canada, highlighting some key linguistic quirks and cultural differences you might encounter.
Okay, let's look at the US first. What are some characteristic phrases or cultural points?
In the US, common phrases often reflect a culture that values efficiency, choice, and a certain style of service interaction. Can you make it quick? As we've seen, points to a general expectation of relatively fast service.
Okay, takeout, leftovers.
Yeah, I'll take it to go, or can I get this to go? Are standard for ordering food not to be eaten in. And asking for leftovers to be packed is very common. Could you box this up for me, please? Or can I get a box for this?
Any other common phrases?
Asking, do you have a happy hour menu? Or, when is happy hour? Is very common, as happy hour, usually late afternoon with discounted drinks and appetizers, is a popular social tradition in many bars and restaurants.
Got it. And the key cultural points for dining in the US?
Well, as we discussed in detail, tipping is a very significant part of the service staff's income, with that 15–20% being the general expectation for good sit-down service.
Right.
Servers typically check on tables quite frequently. Is everything okay here? Casual dining, takeout, and fast food are extremely prevalent across the country. And you might notice, especially in larger chain restaurants, that menus often include calorie counts due to certain regulations.
Okay. Now, let's hop across the pond to the UK. How does it contrast?
The UK has some distinct differences, both linguistic and cultural. Firstly, as we noted, you'll ask for the bill, never the check.
Bill, not check. Got it.
You might hear very casual terms like, fancy a cuppa? For, would you like a cup of tea? It's also very common to ask, is service included? Because a discretionary service charge is sometimes added automatically to the bill, especially for groups.
And saying thank you.
A very common informal thank you, especially after a transaction or service, is simply cheers, or cheers for that.
Okay. What about the cultural dining points in the UK? Big difference in tipping.
Yes, tipping is generally less expected or obligatory than in the US. If service isn't included, a tip of around 12.5% might be given for good service, but it's often more discretionary. Sometimes no tip is left, especially for just drinks or very casual service, and that's usually okay.
What about pubs?
Pub culture is absolutely central to British social life. A key difference here is that you usually order both your drinks and your food directly at the bar. You typically pay up front when you order, even if you're taking a number and sitting at a table to eat. Table service for ordering is less common in traditional pubs.
Good to know. Reservations? Afternoon tea?
Reservations might be less necessary in smaller local pubs or cafes, though still recommended for popular restaurants, especially in cities or on weekends. And yes, the tradition of afternoon tea is quintessentially British, involving tea, sandwiches, scones, and cakes. And the guide makes that fun observation about the two common ways to pronounce scone, rhymes with gone or rhymes with cone. People have strong opinions.
Haha, I bet. Queuing.
Oh yes, queuing, lining up. Patiently is expected behavior in cafes, at pub bars, anywhere there's a counter service. Don't jump the queue.
Right. Okay, down under to Australia. What's the vibe there?
Australia is generally known for its friendly, relaxed, and informal atmosphere, and the language reflects that.
So you might hear.
You might genuinely hear, "Can you make it quick, mate?" Using that characteristic informal term of address. Ordering coffee involves specific local preferences. Can I grab a flat white? Very popular espresso drink there. Or a long black, please. Australia has a very strong cafe culture.
What's BYO?
Is this place BYO? Is a common question. EYO stands for bring your own. Many Australian restaurants, particularly smaller neighborhood ones, allow you to bring your own wine or sometimes beer. There's usually a small fee per bottle or per person called corkage.
Interesting. And leftovers.
A very casual way of asking might be, could you chuck this in a takeaway container for me? Chuck, meaning put or throw.
Okay, cultural points for Australia. Tipping.
Tipping is generally not expected as standard practice, similar to the UK. It's appreciated for really excellent service, but not obligatory. If people do tip, it's often a smaller amount, maybe rounding up the bill or 5–10%.
Cafe culture.
Yes, very strong, sophisticated cafe culture, particularly in cities like Melbourne and Sydney. High-quality coffee is taken seriously. BYO restaurants are a notable feature, as mentioned, and the overall tone of interaction is typically very casual, direct, and friendly.
All right. Finally, Canada, which the guide notes has influences from both its southern neighbor and its British roots.
Exactly. Canada often blends practices. Linguistically, you might hear that recognizable Canadian, tacked onto sentences. Can you make it quick,
Haha, yes.
Any specific Canadian food drink terms?
I'll have a double-double, is classic Tim Hortons lingo. Timmy's is a hugely popular coffee and donut chain, almost a cultural institution. A double-double specifically means coffee with 2 creams and 2 sugars. Knowing that shows some local familiarity.
Good tip. Bill or check. They often use the word check, the British-Canadian spelling of check, for the bill. But the practice of asking, can you split the check, is common, similar to the US.
And poutine.
Yes. Asking, do you serve poutine, might come up. It's a famous, maybe infamous, Canadian dish of French fries topped with cheese curds and gravy.
Okay. Cultural notes for Canada, tipping.
Tipping norms are very similar to the US, with 15–20% being the standard expectation for good sit-down restaurant service. So, quite different from the UK or Australia in that regard.
Influences.
The dining culture feels influenced by both American efficiency and perhaps some British or European traditions. Tim Hortons, as mentioned, has its own unique culture and language. And due to Canada's strong multiculturalism, you'll find an incredibly wide variety of excellent international cuisines readily available everywhere.
Wow, it's fascinating how much variation there is just between those 4 major English-speaking countries.
It really is. Exploring these regional differences highlights how language and dining etiquette are deeply intertwined with local culture, history, and even economics, like the wage structures influencing tipping.
And being aware of these distinctions, even small ones like check versus bill or the tipping norms, can really prevent awkward moments.
Absolutely. It makes your dining experience much smoother, shows respect for local customs, and demonstrates that you've made an effort to understand the local way of doing things. It's those small cultural adjustments that help you navigate different environments more comfortably and confidently.
The guide also touches on phrases specific to different cuisines, which makes perfect sense. The vocabulary you need for an Italian menu isn't quite the same as for a Chinese or Mexican one.
Correct. Different types of restaurants often come with their own unique terminology for dishes, ingredients, or standard ordering approaches. Knowing just a few specific terms related to the cuisine you're about to eat can significantly smooth out the ordering process and maybe even enhance your enjoyment. It helps bridge potential communication gaps with the server, who might sometimes assume a basic familiarity with their menu structure or key terms. It allows you to be more specific in your order.
Okay, so for an Italian restaurant, what kind of specific phrases might be useful?
Well, you'd likely use specific pasta names. I'll have the spaghetti carbonara, please, or could I get the fettuccine alfredo? You might ask about pizza modifications using Italian terms. Can you make the margherita pizza with extra basil but no olives?
Inquiring about specific dishes?
Is the risotto made with porcini mushrooms? Or asking about common side dishes? Could we get a side order of garlic bread?
Distinguishing between sauces.
What's the difference between the marinara sauce and the arrabbiata sauce?
Yeah.
Hint, arrabbiata is spicy. You might also ask about how something is made. Is the tiramisu made fresh here? Or the composition? Does the lasagna contain beef?
Wine recommendations seem common in Italian places.
Very. Can you recommend a dry red wine that would pair well with the lasagna?
Okay. How about for Chinese restaurants? Different vocabulary needed there.
Definitely. You'd use specific dish names again. We'd like to share the sweet and sour pork. You might ask about spice levels for certain dishes. How spicy is the mapo tofu? Or about variations. Can we get the fried rice with chicken instead of pork?
Steamed buns. Peking duck.
Could we get an order of steamed pork buns? Baozi. Or inquiring about famous dishes. What side dishes come with the Peking duck?
MSG. Soup. Dim sum.
Asking about ingredients is common. Is this dish made with MSG? Or clarifying soup contents. What exactly is in the hot and sour soup? If you're having dim sum, small shared dishes, often brunch, you might ask for suggestions. What dim sum items would you recommend for someone new to it?
And for Mexican restaurants, tacos, enchiladas.
Again, specific dish names and components are key.
I'll have the chicken enchiladas with the mole sauce, please. You might need to clarify tortilla types for tacos. Can you make the fish tacos with corn tortillas instead of flour?
Sides and extras?
Asking for accompaniments. I'd love a side of guacamole with that. Or requesting additions. Could you bring us some extra spicy salsa, please? Spiciness. Fillings.
Inquiring about sauce heat. Is the habanero salsa very spicy? Asking what's included in burritos. Do the burritos come with rice and beans inside or on the side? Requesting dietary adjustments. Can you make the vegetable fajitas without cheese?
Defining terms.
Sometimes you might need clarification. What's the difference between a chimichanga and a burrito? Perfectly okay to ask.
Knowing even just a few of these specific terms for the cuisine you're ordering really seems like it would help ensure you get what you're expecting.
It absolutely does. It reduces the chance of miscommunication, allows you to ask more nuanced questions if you want to, and just makes the interaction more efficient and probably more enjoyable for everyone involved.
Okay. Another area the guide covers is handling specific dietary trends, which seems increasingly common in modern dining.
Yes, absolutely. With more people consciously following specific diets like keto, low carb, high fat, paleo, based on presumed caveman diet, or various forms of plant-based eating, knowing how to communicate these needs clearly is becoming a really practical necessity when eating out.
Are restaurants generally prepared for this now?
Increasingly, yes. Many restaurants are much more aware and accommodating of these trends than they used to be. However, clear, confident, and specific communication from you, the customer, is still absolutely vital to ensure they understand your requirements correctly.
So, for someone following a keto diet, what might they ask?
They'd focus on avoiding carbs and sugars. So do you have any specific low-carb or keto-friendly options? Or requesting modifications like, can you make the burger without the bun, maybe served on lettuce instead?
Asking about hidden carbs.
Is there any sugar added to the sauce? Or asking to swap out starchy sides. Could I substitute the fries with a side salad or some steamed broccoli? They might also inquire about desserts. Do you have any keto-friendly dessert options, perhaps berries and cream?
Okay, what about the paleo diet? A focus there is on grains, legumes, dairy, processed stuff.
Right, so paleo phrases would focus on avoiding those. Is this dish prepared without any grains or gluten? Or can you cook the vegetables using olive oil instead of butter or seed oils?
Asking about main courses.
Do you have any entrees that are paleo-friendly? Or verifying ingredients. Is the chicken marinated in anything with soy sauce or sugar?
And for plant-based or specifically vegan diets, this seems quite common now.
Very common, yes.
Yep.
Restaurants are often well-equipped. You'd start by asking, do you have a separate vegan menu? Many places do now.
If not.
Then you need to confirm ingredients for specific dishes. Can you confirm if the vegetable soup is made with vegetable broth and contains no dairy? Or more broadly, is this dish completely free of all animal products including meat, fish, dairy, eggs, and honey?
Modifying existing dishes.
The garden salad sounds good. Can you make it vegan for me, please? Maybe leave off the cheese and use an oil and vinegar dressing. Or inquiring about specific items. What vegan options do you have for dessert tonight? Framing this section is important. It's not just a list of niche phrases. It's a practical guide to empower you to ensure your meal aligns with your health choices, ethical commitments, or dietary needs. Restaurants generally want to accommodate you, but you have to provide them with the clear, specific information they need to do so safely and accurately.
Makes sense. Now, shifting to a completely different speed and style, again, navigating fast food restaurants and drive-thrus, speed is absolutely the name of the game here.
Totally. It's a high-volume, high-speed environment designed for maximum efficiency. The language used reflects that it's generally very concise, direct, and focused on getting the order placed and paid for quickly to keep the line moving.
So, ordering at the counter inside a fast food place.
Phrases are usually pretty straightforward, often using menu numbers or specific combo names. Can I get a number 3 combo, please? Or, I'll have the spicy chicken sandwich meal, large size.
Can you still ask for speed? Seems redundant.
Maybe, but you could still say, can you make that fairly quick, please? I'm double parked. Though speed is generally assumed. Clarifying location is standard. Is that for here or to go? Or the staff will ask you,
Asking about deals.
are there any specials on today? Or what comes with the value meal? Common questions.
Okay. And the drive-thru adds another layer of complexity interacting through that speaker box.
Yes, clarity is even more critical there because the audio quality isn't always perfect. You need to speak clearly and maybe slightly slower than normal.
How do you start the order?
Usually just wait for them to say, go ahead, or welcome to, then state your order clearly. Hi, I'd like to order a cheeseburger, small fries, and a chocolate shake.
Can you add the speed request?
Can you make that as fast as possible, please? When you pull up to the payment or pickup window, you might confirm, hi, I had the cheeseburger order.
What if you didn't hear the total clearly over the speaker?
Perfectly fine to ask at the window. Sorry, could you repeat the total for me, please?
The drive-thru example dialogue in the guide must show just how quick this needs to be.
It does. Customer. Hi there, I'd like a large fries and a vanilla shake, please. Staff, over speaker. Okay, 1 large fries, 1 vanilla shake. Will that be everything for you today?
Quick confirmation.
Customer. Yep, that's all. Thank you. Maybe adds the implicit speed request. How long will that be? Staff.
Got it.
Your total is $5.85. Please drive forward to the first window.
Boom, done.
It's designed for minimal words and maximum throughput. The deep dive here is recognizing how the context dictates the language. Using concise, unambiguous phrasing isn't just polite in this setting, it's essential to the whole operational model and respects the time of everyone in the queue behind you. Being prepared with your order before you get to the speaker helps immensely.
Okay. What about phrases specifically designed for international travelers, or perhaps those who might not feel fully fluent in English yet? It's understandable to need a little extra help sometimes when dining in a foreign language.
Absolutely. And this section of the guide is really empowering because it explicitly acknowledges that it's completely okay not to understand every single word or phrase, especially when you're in a new or unfamiliar environment. These phrases are tools designed precisely to help bridge those communication gaps, allow you to ask for clarification, and ultimately build your confidence.
So how can you ask for things to be made clearer if you're struggling to understand?
Several very useful phrases here. If someone is speaking too quickly, a polite, "Excuse me, could you please speak a little bit slower?" can be a lifesaver.
Good one.
If a menu item description is confusing or uses unfamiliar words, "I'm sorry, I don't quite understand this dish. Could you explain what it is?"
If you just didn't catch something.
"I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you repeat it, please?" Perfectly normal request.
asking about menus in other languages.
Worth asking, though not always available. Excuse me, do you happen to have a menu in Spanish, French, your language?
Okay. And what about navigating an unfamiliar menu when you're just unsure what to pick? Maybe everything looks new.
You can absolutely ask for guidance. What's a typical local dish that you would recommend? Or maybe, could you suggest something that's popular but perhaps not too unusual for a visitor?
Good way to put it.
Confirming spice levels based on your tolerance is wise. Is this dish considered very spicy by local standards? Or asking about general popularity, especially among other visitors. What's a popular item that tourists usually enjoy ordering here?
Asking these questions shows you're making an effort and genuinely seeking their guidance, right?
Exactly. And these phrases give you permission, in a way, to not know everything. They're practical tools for managing the reality of being a language learner, or just a visitor, in a real-world situation. Using them helps you feel more in control, less stressed, and ultimately have a better dining experience.
That's really valuable. Finally, the guide touches briefly on etiquette and language for high-end or fine dining. This seems like a different level of formality and expectation altogether.
It often is, yes. The atmosphere in fine dining establishments is usually more refined, the pace of service is typically slower and more deliberate, and the language used by both the staff and often the patrons tends to be slightly more formal, descriptive, and detailed. Understanding these nuances is part of appreciating that type of experience.
So when making a reservation for a high-end place, what might be different?
You might want to mention the reason for your visit, if it's special. I'd like to reserve a table for 2 for a special occasion. It's our wedding anniversary. You might also inquire about expectations. Could you tell me if there is a dress code for the main dining room?
Asking about specific offerings.
Yes, in more detail. Do you offer a multi-course tasting menu? Or seeking specialized help? Will there be a sommelier available during our dinner service to assist with wine selection?
Okay. And during the meal itself, in this more formal setting?
You might engage with the descriptions more. Could you please elaborate on the preparation of the chef's signature dish? Or request professional guidance with pairings? We're having the duck. What wine would the sommelier recommend to pair with that?
Managing the flow. Complimenting.
You might subtly manage the pace if needed. Could you perhaps allow a little more time between the appetizer and the main course? And expressing high praise is common, often directed explicitly. Please convey our sincere compliments to the chef. This dish was absolutely exquisite. This level of dining often involves a more intricate dance of service, presentation, and interaction. The language used tends to reflect a greater focus on craftsmanship, the provenance of ingredients, culinary technique, and the overall elevated sensory experience.
Okay. The guide thoughtfully wraps up these expanded sections by consolidating some common mistakes to be aware of or pitfalls to avoid.
Yes, and it frames them well, not as failures to be ashamed of, but as potential learning opportunities. These are common things that can sometimes cause friction, confusion, or just make the interaction less smooth than it could be.
Like being overly demanding. We touched on this.
Precisely. Avoiding inherently rude or demanding phrases like, hurry up, or get me a, and consciously choosing polite alternatives like, could you possibly make it quick, please? Or, may I please have?
Ignoring those crucial cultural norms, especially around tipping.
Yes, re-emphasizing the importance of being aware of local tipping expectations, whether it's the strong expectation in the US or the more optional system in places like Australia or the UK, and acting accordingly.
Not clarifying allergies thoroughly enough. Seems this can't be stressed too much.
Absolutely. This is repeated because it's critically important for health and safety. Don't assume the restaurant knows, will remember from a previous visit, or will just guess correctly. State allergies clearly every single time you order.
Misusing slang or regional terms without being fully aware.
Yeah, like confidently asking for the check in London or the bill in New York. It's usually understood but marks you as unfamiliar. Or trying to use very local slang you're not quite comfortable with. It might just sound unnatural or even incorrect. Sticking to clear, standard phrasing is often safer. These points are really just helpful reminders that successful communication when dining out is a blend of knowing the right vocabulary, using polite and appropriate language, and being culturally aware and sensitive. They encourage mindfulness in your interactions.
So looking back at everything we've covered today, wow, it's It's a lot. From making that initial reservation or inquiry, navigating arrival and getting seated, the whole process of ordering drinks and food, handling mid-meal requests, and maybe dealing with issues.
Then paying the bill and understanding tipping, exploring the different vibes of cafes versus restaurants, and diving into those really important regional variations, specific cuisines, dietary needs, fast food, traveler tips, and even fine dining.
It's clear this guide offers a really comprehensive toolkit for diners using English.
It really does try to cover the whole spectrum. It takes you through the entire journey, from planning to leaving, and highlights that successfully navigating dining in English isn't just about memorizing lists of vocabulary. It's more about building confidence by understanding the different stages of the process, recognizing the common interaction patterns, being aware of the cultural context you're in, and feeling prepared with the right language tools to manage all those situations smoothly and politely.
Absolutely. It feels like it's about transforming potentially stressful or confusing moments, especially for a language learner or a traveler, into genuinely enjoyable, successful experiences where you feel capable and comfortable interacting.
Exactly that. Confidence often comes from feeling prepared and understanding the environment you're walking into.
So for you listening right now, maybe take a moment to think about the phrases or the cultural insights that resonated most strongly with you from this deep dive. Which section felt most relevant to your own past experiences or perhaps your future travel or dining plans?
Consider how you might consciously try to use some of these phrases next time you're in an English-speaking restaurant or cafe. It could be a real-life situation, or even just practicing role-playing with a friend or a language partner. Try to actively notice the interactions happening around you in dining settings too. See if you can pick out some of the language points and cultural nuances we discussed today.
And here's a final thought to perhaps ponder as you go about your day. Consider how the specific way we talk about food, service, and the whole dining experience itself might actually reflect broader cultural values or priorities. What subtle differences have you noticed in dining language, perhaps even between different types of eateries within the same city or region? Think about the language used in a super casual diner versus a very formal restaurant, for example. What does that tell us?
It's a really fascinating lens through which to observe language and culture constantly interacting and shaping each other.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into mastering English conversations for restaurants and cafes. Thank you so much for joining us on this learning journey today here at the Learn English Lab.
We sincerely hope this discussion equips you with practical tools and boosts your confidence to dine out with greater ease and enjoyment wherever your English-speaking adventures take you.
And if you found this helpful, please do like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more deep dives into essential English skills and communication strategies.
Until next time, happy dining.